All right, guys, welcome to Sevedge Sessions episode
17.
Yeah, 7. Actually, 1500. Is it 4 or 5?
It's 6.
Okay, so
The episode that almost didn't happen.
This episode did almost not happen. But I'm trying to be dead set on getting it done daily. So funniest shit that just happened. So we talk all the time about growing, right? You know, finding all these other areas to grow. And I tell you what.
Literally in some cases.
Guys, okay, so I'm working so hard in this fat loss journey, right? Woke up this morning, 211.4. That's at, like, dude, things are improving, right? I'm losing weight. I'm so used to at the gym being called a loaf of bread.
Wow,
what other things, Wes? There's more.
Oh, man.
Loaf of bread, Pillsbury Doughboy.
I have not heard any of these.
Yeah, fat. So I'll tell you a little bit about my mentality. So one of the guys at our gym said, Nathan, you know, you're so fat. He's like, now I know why you never wear white clothing.
Oh.
So I specifically bought a bunch of white stuff and I've been wearing it. And I was like, yeah. I know I look fat. You just wait. Now I'm going to fuck you up wearing exactly what you told me I'm not going to wear.
That's right.
That's my mentality.
We love spiteful behavior.
Yeah, that's literally how I operate.
Uh-huh.
So I'm speaking to this coach, right? So I hired it. He's a physique coach. He's not like personal trainer specifically. So like the people he works with are people that are like designated to wanting to do like bodybuilding competitions, shit like that. And I told him, you know, the biggest problem I faced is like just the nutrition side. So I'm talking because it's always been really hard for me, man. Like especially because my past epilepsy, I get down to low. When I get to like 205, always failed. Like it fucking sucked. So we're walking through. Like he's asked me, "What are you eating now?" I'm going through, and I was like, "Yeah, you know, I like to get usually 2 burger patties if I have to eat stuff, and I'm kind of by myself." He's like, "Okay." He's like, "Well, I don't really know how many calories in that," and I was like, "Oh, I can go check." So I grab the meat. I go to the fridge, open the fridge, grab the patties, and walk it out. I was like, "Yeah, so there's like 38 grams of protein." He's like, "Awesome, good." He was like, "How many fats?" I was like, 39 grams. And he went, "Jesus Christ." And his face just drops. And I was like, "Oh, this is so embarrassing."
We had this conversation.
Dude, it was so embarrassing the way he looked at me. And I was like, man. But it was funny. You know what my mind immediately went to? I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I'm so excited. I'm humiliated right now. Because I thought I was on the right path. I'm making all these burger patties. Turns out they're fat as fuck. But he's like, listen, you know, practical next steps when you go out and eat, you know, maybe we're eating sirloin or flank steak instead of fucking ribeyes, right? Instead of doing burger patties, maybe do grilled chicken, right? You know, we're going to make some small immediate changes. And then he also told me, he's like, we're going to track macros. So essentially, how much protein, carbs, and fats you're going to eat every day. And this is going to be really hard, to be honest.
Bitch.
But... yeah, like we talk about that survivor. Like I'm always seeking out those challenges, kind of. But dude, it was just embarrassing.
How can you relate this to some of the things we've been talking about recently?
Well, dude, if I relate it to like people that are in the process, you know how embarrassing it is. Like you start this new programming course or a sales program or all these things, and you get a weekend and you just fucking. Obstacle after obstacle after obstacle.
Or that weird kind of feeling is like, wow, I've been doing this wrong the entire time.
Oh, I know. And it's like you get thrown down and then they're like, time to curb stomp you, right? Like, it's like, dude, you getting thrown down wasn't bad enough. Now it's time for this to happen. And so I'm sitting there and I'm just like, dude, this is just so embarrassing. Like, fuck. But... I think the beautiful part about this is, there's steps I can do and see immediate improvements in, right? I'm done worrying about the past. Like, I'm done worrying about, like, I made some decent progress with that. Cool. Now I know how to make better decisions with my health, right? So instead of eating 80-20 burger patties with fucking 30-something grams of protein,
and the cheese.
Yeah, the cheese. You know, the cheese was...
How many grams of fat in that cheese?
Ironically, the cheese wasn't near as bad as the fat count on the burger patties, because it was like, he was like, are you eating like juicy burgers? I was like, yeah, you know, they're good.
Like a juicy burger.
And he was like, yeah, that means it's fat as fuck, boy.
Could you do maybe, just for argument's sake, 90% lean burgers?
So he's probably like 92.7. Yeah.
92,
so
that exists?
92.7? Yeah. I think it's 93.7. 93.7, my fault.
Silence your phones, gentlemen.
I think it's his laptop that did it.
Wait, hold on. It might be mine.
That's fucking hilarious. Eat a dick. I was about to say if that's yours.
Wasn't mine.
So you can get 93.7. I'll probably end up doing that. As well as just eating a lot more chicken. Unfortunate. I don't eat fucking
What's
chicken,
your beef
bro.
with chicken? I meal prep chicken.
I don't like the chicken, the texture.
You don't like the chick?
The texture of it, bro.
I mean, I don't think anybody does, but that's what it's like drinking water. You don't like water, do you?
I mean, it's not bad, you know.
The chicken's not bad either. Does this speak to maybe the importance of collaborating with someone when you're on a journey, so that these things can be made visible to you?
Yeah, so I think like this is why we hired Sean as the empowerment specialist, right? Yeah. This is why we hired. Man, okay, so I have Wes. Can you go downstairs? On my desk, there's my black journal. Can you grab my black journal and bring it back up here?
What happened to the other one?
I have another one. I don't use it that often. That one,
I mean the other empowerment specialist.
So it just didn't work out.
Didn't work out.
He found a gig that was kind of better for him. I think that probably the job was a little too much for like what he was looking for.
Well, you need a real PhD, not a master's of social.
Dude, we're not gonna go down this route.
But we'll go down this route, all right.
So this is the beautiful part.
Yeah. So
you asked me how does it kind of relate to everybody else, and I think through a couple things. Last night, I was preparing for our executives to come in town, and I was thinking, I had a conversation with Connor. I was like, man, when we go back to the green room, right? So when I say the green room, it was our first office we ever had. It was me, Jack. It was mostly me and Connor in it for like a year and a half.
Heard the stories.
Yeah, and so it was me and Connor in it. And dude, do you know what the worst part is? There's these fucking AC and heating units outside, so it's always just however you feel in your ears right now, that's what it's out every single day. Just
can we pump up the volume?
Yeah, I hope they do. Yeah. I hope they do. So it was every single day this loud fucking noise, and but that's where the DNA of Devslopes was built. Though I built what I built, like what we're seeing today is just a reiteration of what I built then. Yeah. In terms of the culture. And I had a long conversation with Connor. I was like, dude, how did this get built? Like what was it that allowed this to take place? And we were talking about the sales team and the way that they're structured. They got these quotas and all these are taking place. And man, he made a beautiful point. He's like, whenever you were developing me. Oh, thanks so much.
Wes, can you double check that the mics were turned back on? Remember we muted them for that thing?
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Whenever I had a really interesting philosophy when it came to developing Connor. And quite frankly, it was you too. Right? Think about whenever you were creating social posts with us.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you, hey, you have to create social posts that get 10K views every single video?
No.
No, and I never said, Bruce, you're responsible for getting 500,000 reaches per month or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
Never once. So that's where I realized, I was like, man, my mentality has always been, are you putting in the activities? Like the activities. Are you hitting the activities you need to? Do you have the right character and the right values? If you have those aspects and the quality of the work isn't there, no worries. Like seriously. It sucked in the first 30 to 60 days, right? The daily vlogs, this podcast for the first 3 episodes in my mind fucking sucked. They still suck now, most likely. But we could work on that. And so the way that I view it is, this past 3 to 4 weeks, I'm in better shoes than what I was. And then when I spoke to somebody who's a professional at this, he was like, God damn, bro, you fucking suck at what you're doing. Of course he's going to say that. This is his fucking living. He's yoked. He does competitions.
He looked yoked.
Yeah, he's massive. But that's his job. And so when our students come in this program and they see someone like Peter, for example, who's a fucking G at this, who's remarkable. He's going to come on tomorrow. We're going to talk about Chat GPTU or whatever the fuck it's called.
Whatever. Who cares?
Chat GPT. And as embarrassing as that was for me, the way that I view it is, man, I have somebody who's going to help me so much. Sean, when she works with students, hey, let's set some goals. What's holding you back right now? What's on the top of your mind that's really bothering you? Man, what can we do to help you out? Right? And that's how I view this, even though it's painful. And I mean that seriously. It's fucking embarrassing. Like, it is painful. It's almost like I felt like I was in high school getting in trouble. Not fun. It really isn't fun. I look at the fucking videos too. I see a little bit of,
What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, regardless, right? I see it. And, it's very easy for me to sit there and just pick on myself.
Or our worst critic.
Fat. I'm always my worst critic. The beautiful part is Like, I also know my psychological makeup. Like, when I hear people make the snarky comments, you loaf of bread, yada, yada, yada.
Some of the dudes at that gym shouldn't be talking, in all honesty.
But I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, right? Because I'm like, oh, if you think I'm mean to you now, if you think I beat you bad now,
just wait.
Just wait.
Just fucking wait till I drop 10 pounds.
It's going to be so much worse, right? It's not even now, right? Because I'm going to drop down to about 190. But I'm going to then go back up to about 215.
But with muscle.
Yeah. And I was like, and that's when pain comes, right? This is going to be a fucking long 18 to 24 month long journey. Mm-hmm. But that's the beautiful part.
And what do we have from the journal today that you want to dive into?
We go back to what we were talking about, like how we were able to, what was the Devslopes DNA, right? And I wrote a bunch of values down here as well as principles. And I think that these are things, like these are the Devslopes values and principles, you know. And I think that all the people listening, if you take these and implement these in your life, I feel like this is the path to success. Right. This was my path to building a $20 million company.
Well, I'll say this. I remember when you outlined what you wanted the things to do, or rather what you wanted the responsibilities to be. You did make the point to me very early on that if you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing and you come at this in an organized way, you will hit these goals.
100%.
It's not a question of if, it's when.
Yeah, and so what I've been thinking about is like, man, you know, from my experience, what is my truth? Like, what advice have I had success with that I can push on to other people? Because I don't want to sit there. You know, I mean, people know my income, right? At this point, you know, it's a little.
Maybe you could leave that out.
Nah, I'm gonna keep it in there because I think it's
IRS.
Nah, well, I pay all my taxes. I'm a good man from that standpoint.
Some of us.
So here's the beautiful part.
Edit that out, Nathan.
All of these are part of the journey, right? From where I was to now, and what built DNA or Devslopes DNA. And these values and these principles I'm about to talk through, me and Connor sat there for like an hour and a half and talked about it. And man, it was so like kind of eye-opening. Like I think I know a lot about myself, but having him from an external lens give feedback, I was like, fuck, he has a good-ass point. So I first want to go through, you know, the philosophy for developing the employees. And I think that we could take this internally and use it as a framework, because this is the exact same way we work with students, right? So the philosophy has always been we coach activities and the quality of those activities and growth in skills. We then believe everything will play out because what we can control, we did, right? We can only control what we did. There's a famous quote for people that work in sales. And the quote was this. They said, if you sell to the quota, you're not going to be able to hit it. The only thing you can control today is if you're making the calls. You can't coach somebody to hit a $500K quota or $1 million quota, or you can't coach somebody to make an ad that's a $35 CPA. The only thing you can do is make an ad, put it out, and try to improve on it. Try to do better things. The only thing these people watching that are coders can do is write code, practice more code, practice. You can only do that. You can't just make something substantially more efficient, right? It takes time and practice and reiteration to get to that. It takes patience, right? And so this concept is we're always going to coach and improve on what we can do, which leads into our values and principles. So core value number 1 is honesty, right? So what Connor told me, he was like, dude, if anybody ever lies, he's like, you can't let it go. He's like, the moment someone lies to you, and maybe, you know, some of this came from, you know, a divorce that happened last year. I was in kind of a unique state. But he was like, dude, you obsess over it. He's like, if someone lied to you, you don't let it go. And you will just stay on it until essentially y'all part ways. He's like, you can't let shit go. And part of that is because after someone breaks trust and you have to catch them breaking the trust, they don't come to you. You know, how do you gain that trust back?
Right.
Almost every employee that this has happened with, it didn't work out well, right? Connor's the only one, right? We had a handful of issues with Connor doing stuff, but dude, he fucking acted like a man. He's like, I own up to this shit. You know, I know what I want. And this is not what I want for my life. And dude, he made a complete 360. Now he's like my right-hand man at the company. I trust him with so much. Like, I talk about this all the time. You, Connor, Jack, Ethan, Peter, I trust y'all with so much, right? West is now getting into the group because he's around me 24/7. He gets to hear and being part of all kinds of conversations. And we have new people that are kind of starting to come into this what I'll call the inner circle, right? Like we have people who are coming in who are kind of working their way up to management in a sense that's pretty unique to see. But number 2, vulnerability. He said something really interesting. He was like, Nathan, he was like, every time you sat down with me and had like a rough conversation, it wasn't a boss to employee scenario. He was like, you were vulnerable to a sense. You're like, man, I want you to succeed, right? I've had these exact same problems. I know what you're going through. You know, I still to this day have trouble with XYZ, right? We were just having an honest, vulnerable conversation. Like, I'm not perfect either, man. But, you know, this is just not acceptable, right? If you continue down this route, you're not going to be here anymore. So we're talking about this vulnerability aspect next. Productive conflict and transparency. We had some productive conflict today about how this fucking podcast was going to work.
Who would have thought? It's a lot difficult.
I know.
A lot more difficult than people think.
Dude, I know. So it's funny, right? Like we have admin disagreements. I try to have as much admin disagreements as possible, right? Like, I feel like most companies, right? Like, for example, like the deal you made about Hooked on Phonics earlier today, right? Most people would have just like said nothing and like kept it angry. And I'm typically on the lines of like, dude, don't fuck you, Bruce. Okay, you know that hurt my feelings. You know, I actually
it really,
dude. I actually was hooked on phonics, dude. I can't.
You were addicted to the phonics,
dude. It was so embarrassing, bro. Like I
can't.
Well,
to be fair, that comment was not aimed at you.
I know.
It was aimed towards certain people on our editing team that seemed to hate spelling.
Stop. I misspell everything, so I can't say that much. I literally had Peter last night go, Nathan, you're the fucking CEO of the company. You cannot misspell shit on Discord.
Well, Peter and I are the same type of asshole in certain ways.
You know, so Peter literally messages me all the time. Hey, Peter, we're talking about you. He won't be able to hear me. He's plugged in. So he will send me messages all the time. I'm watching time too.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Nice
Don't worry about it.
Got, bro.
Floss it.
$8,000 watch I got. You know, no big deal.
Thank you. I got to see my watch right here.
Well, I actually have a surprise for you later, but we're going to ignore that for now.
Okay.
So, it's so funny because he will send me stuff all the time with error messages. Point being, Nathan Charles, do not get upset by this. You're going to misspell shit. This is just the beginning. It's going to be inevitable. It's not stopping. So, productive conflict and transparency. So, like, shit that you guys think matters, that you love, you should be open to having conversations. Crucial conversations, talked about in the first episode. Go back and listen to it. It's perfect in terms of what this is. It's ingrained in
Great book. Very good for the kind of understanding the idea of how to have healthy conflict.
Yeah.
Rather than avoiding.
100%.
Which leads to worse conflict.
Well, you learn so this is interesting. You learn more about your biases.
Yeah.
So, like, I have biases against sarcasm, right? Like, I mean this seriously. When we text, you meant that, like, apologetically. You were like, hey, I'm sorry. And I was like, dude, I can't tell if you're being serious or not. My mind goes to he's being a sarcastic dickhead right now. That was
actually the cerebral chess move, was just to continue of a bullshit.
Dude, that's what I thought. I was like, I literally looked at West. I was like, dude, I fucking hate the way he texts. I don't know what he's saying. Why can't he put an emoji in here?
I'll be here soon.
Yeah, dude, it bothers me. All right, next one, respect versus disrespect. So, like, if someone disrespects me, this is part of, like, kind of, you know, there's probably a trauma-related deal. You know, also a little bit of macho man style, probably.
Well, we're all men here.
Yeah, but like even, you know, Sean, you know, we're interviewing somebody today here, literally in about an hour for a recruiting position in the company.
Oh yeah.
And man, like I think that some people they act blatantly disrespectful. It's like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Like I don't know who you think you are, but if you think like. Again, somebody got let go last week. They were adamantly disrespectful on something that should not have happened. Unacceptable.
Oh, we're not talking about playful between friends here.
No, we're talking about like genuine disrespect. Like, so like we will have scenarios like this where you're like, oh, were you actually upset about that? Yeah, motherfucker, I was. Like, because I was an idiot in high school. Like, I was so insecure about it. And like,
we're not going to compare jokes here.
Yeah, there's the playful scenarios like this. Like, and like all of us will say jokingly, like friend-like disrespectful stuff, right? But it's different when we're in a scenario, like if we're having a meeting, right? Like everybody kind of understands, like, hey, listen, you know, we could joke around a little bit, but like, hey, if Nathan is like, if we're being serious here, we need to be serious. Like he has an actual objective here we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And if there's open disrespect, some people are nicer in how they manage it. I don't. I call it out directly on the spot. Like, hey, that's insane. What you just said was disrespectful. I go back to one point. I ended up being wrong. I looked like a dickhead. But whenever we were in London with Clint, and Clint pulls his phone out, I was like, Clint, is there a reason for you to have your phone out right now? Like, we're doing something. And he was like, I'm taking notes on it. And I was like, Gah. And I was like, are you really? And he was like, yeah, bitch. And he turned around and I was like, dude, I feel like an idiot right now.
I remember that.
And I apologized to him in front of everybody because that was wildly disrespectful on my end. But it's like, it's funny. I think that, like, if I wouldn't have said anything, I would have just sat in there. There's like Bill Burr that made a joke about this. And I'm just sitting there like, dude, why was he on his phone? Why was he on his phone? He should have been listening. So last 4 values, being growth-minded, proactive. So you're proactive when you get stuck. You are trying to grow 24/7. This one, ironically, the mind of it came from Peter. So I was talking to Peter. I was like, man, dude, it seems like all the guys on our education team and the coding team, they work their asses off. And he said, yeah. And I was like, okay. And he was like, for example, Jonathan. He's like, Jonathan is always striving to become better. Like, they want to be great at what they do. And this isn't they want to be Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak or anything along those lines. No. Like, they want to be great developers. They take their career as a craft. They take it very seriously. And they're passionate about what they do. And I thought that was kind of so cool, getting context of, like, him saying they want to be great. And I was like, man, that's one of the values I want for Devslopes. Like, that's Connor, you, West, all of y'all. Like, y'all treat this as, I want to be great at what I'm doing, right? Y'all, I don't have to check in with y'all, right? I don't have to do most of those things. Y'all are already doing it, right? Y'all want to be great at what you do. And if anybody listening to this takes that to heart, fuck, that's wildly powerful. Like, I'm going to be great. I'm going to be proactive, right? What can I do to improve? Sean messaged me like 4 times in the past 3 weeks. Nathan, what can I do to improve? Nathan, what can I do to improve? And today was the first time I gave her some feedback. She's crushing it, though. I love that, right? Because it means that you want to grow. You want to improve.
Grab the bull by the horns.
100%. Like, that's what I'm doing, right? That's why I hired the coach. So I have to do the same thing to be proactive. But we could use these internally for ourselves, right? You are always going to be pushing yourself to get a better CPA. Mm-hmm. Like, to do a better job advertising. For us to do a better job with this podcast. Like, everything. The last 3, you're mission-driven and you hold conviction. So this is kind of an interesting one. A lot of people don't feel like they're on a mission, right? So this isn't me saying you need to have a 5-year plan, but you need to have an idea of what your North Star is and the direction of where you want to take your life. Do you want to earn more money? Cool. That could be your general North Star, right? But you have to know where you want to go. What are your goals? If you have no mission for yourself in life, you're not going to be able to accomplish anything, right? You're going to have no conviction, right? You have to, like, one of the things Connor said is, I did this a little snarkily how I did it to him. We would walk around and I would tell Connor, I was like, Connor, this is around the times we had some issues. He's 16 at this time, right?
Very young man.
Yeah. And so I would joke around and be like, hey, Connor, you want to work here? He'd be like, what? It would be at like Walmart. I'd be like, do you want to work here? He'd be like, no. I said, bro, you keep showing up late. You're going to fucking work here. Does that guy look happy? I pointed at him, like, do you want to be that man behind the counter right now? You will be transferred at the electronics. I was like, that's what you're going to be if you keep fucking up. And I meant it seriously, right? Like, West, I'm looking at you right now, right? Do you want to go back to the juice place? Is that who you want to be? West, can you look at the camera and shake your head?
Not without messing up our setup.
Don't do that then. Don't do that then.
This is very intricate.
But point being, right, like, we have to have ideas and visions of who we want to become, even though it's intimidating and we might seem a little delusional. But that's what matters.
Do you think people are afraid of sucking at something?
Oh, 100%. I'm afraid at it,
right?
To an extent, right? Like, I'm embarrassed. It's not fun. Like, pretty much having to be like, bro, I know you're trying, but you're really bad at trying. Like, you're doing really bad. Like, he was sitting there, like, trying to find a nice way to say it with his eyes like this. And I was like, dude, if you're looking like that, then I have to mirror this movement because I don't know what to say.
Oh, what the fuck am I paying you for? It's supposed to be motivating.
Well, that's the funny part, right? Like, I don't want somebody to try to motivate me. right? Like, and that's actually one of the principles. So I'll move forward some and I'll kind of touch it. So the last two is self-awareness and team-minded.
Oh.
You need to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and you need to understand how you impact teams, right? When you go into a business and, you just want to get your first job, you really don't give a fuck what company it's for, to be honest. Like, you're just like, I want to get a job in coding. I want to get a job in advertising. That's cool, right? But you need to be thinking about this. How can I improve the team? Not how can I get my first job, but how can I become an advertiser and do great work? Most people are thinking, how can I get my first job? Stop. Wrong. You need to be thinking, how can I become a great advertiser and do great work and help the business? How can I write remarkable code? What principles do I need following to where I can help the team out? When you start thinking about that now, before you even get that job, you go in the job interview and you're like, listen, I've already worked on dry principles. My code is remarkable. You have the ability to look through it right here. If you want to talk about stuff, feel free to. You should be able to understand everything. I try to write code to where if I'm in a team environment, people will know what's going on. I know that it's important that people understand what's happening so that I don't push anything live that people won't understand, right? These are all important things.
Well, skill and collaboration lead to success, not the other way around.
Dude, absolutely.
Yeah, like a lot of people think that, it's like you have to get good at something, get comfortable at something, then learn how to apply it with others. And I don't know when we're going to have this freelancing conversation, but I think that's a big part of that as well.
I want to, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, I might have to record it when you're gone because I'm going to record a clip today. I might do it just separately as like a one-off shop here in just a moment.
You could have Peter and Ethan come up here and try out this wonderful setup that West has labored for so many hours to complete.
So I'm going to give some context, guys, in case I don't think I'm going to do it on this podcast. What I'm going to do is I'm going to record a video here in a bit. I'm taking a screenshot of this. So what we're going to be doing, we had somebody ask, how do I write a resume if I don't have any experience in front end? I have a friend, and he wanted me to apply for just an entry-level position at his company. So I'm going to address this in a bit. It's from Anton, one of our students in the program. So we'll address that in a moment. But let's get to these final principles. So principles are essentially values in action, right? These are actions that we're looking for. These are principles for success within the company, right? So these are where they start off. Number one, you have to want to be great. Like if you want to work at Devslopes, you have to want to be great. Cannot be you have to want to be above average. You cannot want to be average. If you're going to want to be average, I'm going to sniff it out and you will find a home somewhere else. Just the truth of things.
Walmart.
If you want to be a great company, that's why I did that to Connor though, for real. It gave him context, right? That context showed him fuck. And I spoke to him all the time, dude. Have you looked at 16-year-olds your age? Have you looked at 17, 18, 19-year-olds your age?
I have.
Look around. Bro, and like he got context.
Yeah.
It's a very pretentious way of doing it and pious way of doing it, but
he understood where his bread was buttered,
Yeah, I also understand him a little bit to where I understood kind of the motivations that drive him, right, in that sense. So number one, you have to want to be great. Number two, you must be obsessed with being and becoming efficient. So if you're inefficient but effective, right, that's great. But if you're inefficient, you're not looking for new ways to do things better, right? Like there might be a way, for example, so the way that we're doing the podcast right now, right? And then also the daily vlogs and all these things, they're going to have to find more ways to become more efficient, right? Like compare the first day of putting out the vlog. If you didn't have the idea of doing proxies and all this other thing, it would have been an absolute nightmare, right? Imagine if y'all never thought about that. You would be having to do all of this by yourself. Efficiency kills people, right? And so the new world we're moving into, when you have an entire organization focused on efficiency, you then have the ability for the entire organization to grow together versus everybody just separately doing their own shit, right? Some salespeople doing it great, some salespeople doing terrible. Hey, I figured out that this does really great. You should try this, right? They're communicating together because they have the team vision. Next, don't complain about anything you can control. I'm going to look at them. Do not complain about anything that you can individually control. It's fucking terrible. It's the worst habit. It's a shadow that gets casted upon everybody in the company that you work around if you're a complainer and a whiner. Nobody wants to deal with you. I know that 2 episodes I was a lot more compassionate about this, right? And
We're losing compassion.
Yeah, well, to an extent, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's probably some stuff going on if someone's complaining, right? Or maybe they don't feel like they're being heard. There's a lot of stuff there. But there's also the personal responsibility aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Man, stop fucking complaining. Mainly from an aspect because it really doesn't do any good for you. You have to learn how to handle shit yourself, and it's really painful. But if you keep complaining, not only are you not helping yourself, you're alienating everybody that works around you. And when your bosses figure out you've been doing nothing but complaining and pulling the team down, you're out, bro.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of being. It's going to happen immediately. If your activities, quality and work, and character are aligned with the company, you're going to have a home. That's what it's like in almost any company, right? So all these massive layoffs are happening. I'm going to be upfront. These layoffs are people who probably didn't align in those 3 things. Even if their activities are great, the quality of work was, they're probably dickheads, right? Or maybe the quality of work was great, but they're putting out a fraction of what they're supposed to. It doesn't matter if you're a good guy. Dude, you're not doing what you're supposed to. Those 3, if any of those are missing, you're going to be gone. They're not going to keep you around because they could find somebody more reliable. Because without those 3, reliability is not there. And that's what you build a business on, reliability. I want reliable people who are driven to do great work around all of us. That's what I want. That's what I need at Devslopes. You must be aware of who you are, who you want to become, and aware of the impact that you have. There's something really neat. Every single student that comes in Devslopes, you've almost touched every single one. You are almost responsible for helping bringing in every student. That says a lot. West, the impact you have producing this in the daily vlogs. Every student in the program or potential future students are going to be watching these things, and it's going to impact their motivations, their willingness to be in the program, a lot of factors. You both are individually going to impact millions of lives, legitimately.
Like an angel.
Millions of people are going to watch your videos. We have to understand that because that gives gravity to why we're here. If you don't know who you are, who you want to become, or the impact you make, if you miss any of those 3, again, you're not going to be here in the long run. So it's my job to make sure that you see that. And it's one of the goals with this podcast that we could start unearthing these more and more and more. Next, these are the last 4. You're resourceful and know how to educate yourself. Listen, the coders are going to get this. You got to learn how to use Google, guys.
You have to know how to learn. Yeah, you have to know how to learn. Actually, no, that's true. You have to know how to learn.
Yeah, bro.
You have to teach yourself how to learn.
We're not going to answer all this shit.
Yeah.
Like, you guys are going to have to figure some stuff out. The questions that I see in this Discord sometimes, I'm like, yo, how to use Google. Like, it's like, how did this happen, right? What is going on here, right? Like, can't log in. It's called reset password. I don't know what's hard about this, bro.
It amazes me how many people have like their phones and computers in front of them at all times and yet never use them in order to look up things or to get the answers to questions, etc.
But again, these are the principles. You follow these babies, you're going to get a job. Last 3. We're growing at all times, and we don't slow down for anyone. I think everybody should follow this internal monologue for it. Dude, you're growing at all times. Don't slow down for anybody, right? If you're growing consistently, you're going to be able to go get tech jobs that are remarkable. You're going to be able, employers are going to need you because not only are you great skill-wise, but you'll be able to turn into a general, right? You're not going to be able to just create great ads. You're going to be able to show people how to create great ads within the company when we have to get our ad spend to tens of millions of dollars a year. Right? Like, we need other people who know how to do that shit, right? It's the question of, do you want to be the tactician or do you want to be the strategist, right? One is great. One can get a lot of attention. One is a kingmaker. They help lots of other people have success, and in return, they achieve substantially higher success. It's a lot harder. It's not near as fun. It's much worse, but there's much bigger payoffs for it. Last 2. It is not our responsibility to motivate you. Even in this, I view it as this is our ability to help people fix their lens of the world, right? It's not my job to, try to force somebody to make action. You can't force it. What I can do is people that are slowly making forward progress. We can help them make a little bit bigger steps. We can make them stay a little bit more consistent. We could change the way they view a small problem. And that changes everything. If we can get those small little changes. And lastly, actively engage in meetings and conversations. What this came from, ironically, is the amount of people that join Zoom calls or whatever, they're fucking smoking in the background. Right? I've seen so many people hit a fucking vape on our Zoom calls, and I have almost lost it.
As you should.
Dude, it's so disrespectful to me. Like, it's just like wildly just showing you don't care, right? Joining a Zoom call and not having your video on. Dude, what are you even doing? I don't even know what you're doing right now. Having conversations like this and just being over here or looking at my phone the entire time. It's just wildly disrespectful. Mm-hmm. We can be mindful about these things. And if we follow these values and principles, I'm going to actually release all of these to the company, probably a little bit more next week. And the goal of this is being able to provide people with a template for success, right? The template that I can say that this has led to success for so far is taking a company that did 300,000 to over 20 million, right? In worth. That's what this is about. That's what I've been able to prove so far. It's how I was able to make everything happen on my side, right? So if we're able to take these things and make them responsible for us, that's how we have our success. It's 4:55. You got to go in 5 minutes. Do you have any thoughts? And then what I'll probably do is we'll just keep this running, West, and I'll just record the video off this.
Just keep it going.
Yeah, we'll let you walk your beautiful self out.
I will walk myself out. That's right.
Well, actually, I can wrap that answer up in like 2 minutes. We just do a separate. Cool.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd like to expand on some of these things, but I think you hit the nail on the head in a lot of ways, because there are certain things you need to adopt, and there are certain personality types out there. Give a quick little anecdote. I was in the Uber the other day with a guy that gave me the whole, woe is me, my boss was a piece of shit, he didn't know anything, and it's just like, how many times do you hear people with that mentality? Nothing's wrong, nothing I did was wrong, I had no part in this, it was specifically the bureaucracy of upper administration holding me back. You need to take a look at yourself and assess objectively, like, can I work on some of these things and can I implement these things in my life,
Isn't it funny how we go from a victim mentality podcast to this? Because I do think it's important for the levels to be seen from both ways, right?
Yeah.
I understand that, man. I do understand why a lot of us feel the way we do. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, there has to be the voice, the inner monologue of saying, guys, we got to go the opposite way. It's funny, that motivational interviewing book, one of the things it said was, one of the reasons addicts do not get over their addictions is because the people around them are preaching so much that you need to fix this, you need to fix this, you need to fix this. In their mind, they naturally play devil's advocate, right? When you only hear this side and you never hear this side, we're going to lean to this side, right? It's just a natural human tendency. Mm-hmm. But when you play both ends, you play both voices, what you can then do is help somebody reason their way to where they need to go, because you then understand the addiction side of it. You can speak to that. You can say, man, I can't imagine the urges that you've had to fight. I can't imagine how terrible it's had to been. And there's a relief in that, a relief of, oh, man, they get it. Someone can finally see me for what I've had to struggle with. And that feeling of being understood is just unbeatable. Like, you can't really beat that for most people. Man, I think that we'll wrap it for today. That was a hot fire episode. Tomorrow, next episode, we're going to be talking, is AI going to be taking over everybody's jobs? Peter is not wanting to do this. But
that'll be a fun one.
Yeah, he's going to be doing this shit regardless. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace out, guys.